Graham crackers. Yes, the crackers you probably associate with your childhood and s'mores were originally invented to prevent masturbation.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
The sweetened cracker we know today as a graham cracker doesn't much resemble the original recipe, but the story of how the cracker went from anti-sex propaganda to a campfire classic is certainly one of the most interesting and bizarre origin stories in the food world. So let's get into it. The man behind the cracker, Sylvester Graham, was born in Connecticut in 1794 and dealt with the death of both of his parents at a young age, causing him to turn to the Presbyterian Church for support. Throughout his young life, he became obsessed with health, partially because he was a fairly frail and sickly child, which later led him to enroll in Amherst College to study the human body. He dropped out before finishing the program and held many jobs, including being a farmhand and teaching, before landing on becoming a minister at the Presbyterian Church. At the church, he preached that sex, materialism, and gluttony made people physically ill. He strongly believed masturbation was the worst of all, claiming it inflames the brain more than natural arousal and amounts to self-abuse. He urged his devotees to help launch one of America's first vegetarian movements by claiming that eating wholesome food makes for more wholesome people, and in 1829 set out to create a snack that reflects his values: a brittle, near-flavorless biscuit made of unbleached flour, bran, and wheat germ. As he preached the value of the new cracker said to especially curb sexual desire in adolescent boys, he started to gain a following of people known as Grahamites, who saw him as a visionary. The cult-like following around his anti-masturbation diet made Graham eventually able to build and open boarding houses where all residents abided by his strict rules. This meant eating foods chock full of simply prepared whole-grain breads and starches with little to no seasoning. Meat, coffee, alcohol, and tobacco were strictly forbidden, and he encouraged taking cold showers and sleeping on hard mattresses. Many of his followers preached in letters about the life-changing impacts the diet has had on them, claiming it cured everything from headaches to depression. But not all were on board with Graham's claims, which were widely seen as false by most well-established medical journals of the era. Many butchers and bakers also attended his lectures only to storm out in protest. But above all, he enraged many men at the time by publicly discussing sex in front of women, which resulted in mobs and protests in the northeastern United States. Graham, however, continued to preach this message until he died in 1851. Although after his death, his diet and movement began to lose some steam, the story doesn't end there. One of his followers went on to create another product that's still on store shelves today. That man's last name might sound a little familiar: Dr. John Harvey Kellogg, who happened to be the superintendent of the Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan. Kellogg, who was a skilled surgeon, insisted his patients follow a similar diet to what Graham had created, and was a major advocate of circumcision, claiming it to reduce the desire to masturbate. One night, his brother Will Kellogg, who was a bookkeeper at the sanitarium, accidentally left cooked wheat out that was intended to be fed to the patients, letting it go stale. The Kelloggs decided to try and force it through their food rollers anyway, which instead of softening, the wheat came out hard and in flake form. Dr. Kellogg served the flakes, which were genuinely well received by the sanitarium's patients, and many patients after leaving the sanitarium would request the flakes be sent to them by mail order. While Dr. Kellogg was a staunch believer in Graham's diet, his brother Will was not, and saw a mass market opportunity given all the mail orders for their newly developed product. He decided to add a touch of sugar to the flakes, a big no-no in the Graham diet, which caused a rift between the two brothers. Eventually, Will Kellogg went out on his own to found the Kellogg's Corporation, which of course is now a global multi-billion-dollar business selling mostly sugary cereals. To this day, it's widely believed that Sylvester Graham created one of the first food fads in America, but he probably wouldn't be too happy to learn that graham crackers are now mass-produced sugary treats, mostly eaten with marshmallows and chocolate, made by Nabisco, which for years was owned by a tobacco company. Oh, and he of course might be a little disheartened to learn that Nabisco doesn't seem to have much of a public stance on masturbation.